It's Good Friday, 2020. I do hope you will have some time today to spend a little extra time in prayer. The EPC has put out a call for fasting and prayer, and there's some resources on the church website that you can take advantage of if you have the opportunity. I'm just going to share a brief passage of Scripture and then talk to you a little bit about some artwork and music that may help you in your prayer life today as we give thanks for what Jesus Christ has done for us. This comes from Isaiah chapter 53. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. Artists and musicians have been attempting for centuries to proclaim the significance of what Christ did on the cross. One of those pieces was painted around the time of the Reformation in that little area between France and Germany. It's called the Isenheim Altar, and it was designed as a focal point in what was a pre-literate age, really, where communion would be served, but it was a hospital primarily. And there's a remarkable painting of the crucifixion, and Jesus is on the cross, but his skin is almost green. I mean, it looks like he's not dying from wounds of the crucifixion, he's almost dying of the plague. And his figure is much larger than the other figures in the painting, who are dealing with different stages and different types of suffering as they watch Jesus on the cross. But in the midst of that, there's also John the Baptist who is pointing towards Jesus, and in Latin it quotes John 3:30. He must become greater, I must become less. The idea behind this painting is that as those who were sick in the hospital looked at it and meditated on it, the possibility of reflecting on Christ's suffering on our behalf would provide healing in every capacity. And we're going to look at how this artist, whose name we don't even know, culminates in the resurrection depiction as well. And of course, we'll look at that on Sunday. Also, I want to include a painting by Rembrandt, Dutch master, who was famous for all of his self-portraits, among other things. But he has a remarkable painting of Christ being raised on the cross, and he has painted himself into the painting as literally saying, my sins as well are responsible. I too took part in putting Jesus on the cross. It's perhaps already familiar to you, but if not, please take a look at that. A couple of pieces of music today. Jars of Clay, combining Gregorian chant with the reflection of Christ on the cross. This is the one thing that I know. Soren Kierkegaard said, purity of heart is to know one thing. And if we reflect on what Jesus did for us on the cross, that really is the thing we should hold on to. John Davis, guy who was in a British punk band, came to Christ, decided to go solo, and made a remarkable record. It's a mixture of Beach Boys, Beatles, Bob Dylan, and Wilco, perhaps. All of it is really worth listening to, but what kind of heart is one of the best meditations I've ever heard on what it was that Jesus carried to the cross. Classical piece, I talked to you a little bit about Knut Nystedt yesterday. My introduction to him was at Northwestern University singing in a choral group. Robert Harris loved Baroque music and 20th century music. He also introduced me to Bach's B minor Mass. He pulled out this piece called O Crux. And in the previous semester, we had done another 20th century piece that some poor student years before, whenever this had been done, wrote at the bottom of one of the pages, "This is dreadful." And honestly, I had to agree by the end of it. I just could never get into understanding or appreciating this particular piece. And when we started O Crux, I thought, oh boy, here we go again. This is just very dissonant. I don't really understand it. It is a poem by a 6th century writer reflecting on the crucifixion. And at the beginning, it literally sounds like someone being tortured. It is very uncomfortable. But in the midst of this struggle and difficulty, suddenly the chords begin to change, and what was agony turns into glory. It is certainly one of the most beautiful 20th century pieces of any genre I've ever had the joy of participating in or listening to. And I just want to take a moment to thank every teacher that has challenged students with something different, something difficult, but brought them to a place of understanding and appreciation. I am a far better person for the good teachers in my life, especially in the fine arts. So thank you, Robert Harris, wherever you are. And then Kathleen Battle, were you there when they crucified my Lord? Solo, a cappella. It seems fitting, since it really was the women that stuck around at the cross. God bless you today.